Joining me now is David Heller, president of the Geary Merchant Association, and a good friend. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Last week we got into the plans for Geary Street, and one of the things we didn't get into is how this whole thing began. I mean, here has been Geary sitting there for a long while, minding its own business. Businesses like yours prosper. Business on Clement Street prosper. Then all of a sudden, there's an uproar about rapid transit on Geary Street, and I understand there was something in Prop K that the voters voted for, not knowing, unless they read the whole thing, that that's what they voted for. Well, how did that happen?
Well, in the 90s, they were trying to do that, and we had talked with them, and they saw that there was opposition. So there was a group of people who got together and decided to come up into propositions, that will get the people to vote on. And well, it was to improve maintenance of local streets, the transportation for the elderly and disabled, citywide network for fast and reliable buses.
What are we talking about here?
We're talking about what people voted for.
Which was Prop K?
Which was Prop K.
And, okay, now Prop K appeared on the ballot at the same time as the mayoral runoff.
That is correct, between Gonzalez and
all right, so now we know that the mayoral runoff is in December.
Correct.
It's cold in December.
Correct.
Turnout is very poor, which is why people wanted instant voting.
Correct.
And so you're saying, and I don't remember it. I, as a voter, don't remember Prop K. And you're saying in there was buried a plan to do what is being proposed now on not only Geary Street, but Van Ness and others.
And Potrero, yes. On page 156, McGoldrick decided to just add, BRT, which means rapid bus transit, and light rail ready. He added it without any public input. He had all the opportunity that he could, but he never informed us.
Does it allow for bonds to be floated without voter approval for this kind of project?
Well, in a way, somehow they figured it did, because what they did is we had this bond B, and then they came up with this one, which is a 30-year, this is really going to cost the taxpayers a lot of money, because this bond, this half a cent sell tax was supposed to be been put to improve Muni, but never was it ever mentioned about the light rail or anything like that. There is no money for this.
Well, there's sometimes federal money, and there's matching grants. But what is going on here then? I mean, we had Spur representative from Spur, Jeffrey Tumlin, on. He's a transportation expert. We've had Gabriel Metcalf from Spur. We've had other individuals. Is it their plan to basically change Geary Street, or do they just want a rapid bus lane to move traffic during rush hour to improve Muni?
We're talking about 7 minutes. I am on the Geary Advisory Board Committee, and we're talking about 7 minutes. What they are trying to do is to change the demographic of the Richmond. We are not against improving Muni. We're not against increasing the density of the Richmond, but not at the cost of putting people out of business.
Is that what you think they're up to?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Well, we know that there are people who, look, the urban green and urban environmentalism, a principle of it is to put high-rise, high-density housing around transit system. Okay, that's international. And BART used that successfully. You're saying that ideology is going to be imposed, in your opinion, on that community, the Richmond, and other communities?
We're talking about the Richmond, yes, in the Richmond.
How could you, as a merchant association, allow this proposition, even though it was 200 pages long, to go by without reading it and knowing what was coming?
We are not the only one that fell through the crack. Clement Street Merchant Association, the editor from the Richmond Review, which he apologized in the paper to his readers that it fell through the crack.
He endorsed it?
No, he did not endorse it,
But he didn't read it enough to warn the community.
Exactly.
Well,
neither did I, because when I read it, I read only the 10-page template, I didn't realize that this was a 200-page, and then page 156, there was a BRT light rail already. If I did, I would have had something to
And
say about it.
and we all know that you have one of the most powerful organizations, and you have connections, and you can make waves when you see it. But the fact is, this went by you without you knowing it was in there.
Exactly. My supervisor, Jack McGoldrick, did an incredible job by doing it without telling the public, without any public input, without any never mentioning it in any of the town hall meeting, in any of his column in the Regional Review. He just did it. He did it with Rescue Muni. He did it with the Green Parties, and he have
Spur.
Spur.
But we know from the experience with the Central Freeway.
And the Chambers of Commerce also was involved in that.
Why
in 2003.
In other words, the Chamber would have gotten involved because it seems like a good idea, moving workers from the neighborhoods downtown faster.
That is correct. And we can do that by having a designated diamond lane and by eliminating it. We don't need to have a bus stop every block.
I do want to get to that in a moment, but the real concern, and I understand, in other words, we look at Ocean Avenue. We look at
disaster.
Judah. Disaster. There's no more parking.
No more parking.
There's no more parking because you have to provide facilities for disabled San Franciscans.
Correct.
That means now all of a sudden you are destroying parking.
That is correct.
And
we're talking about thousands of parking
right,
lots.
and it seems
and lanes.
See, what I got the impression of when I was thinking about this program is, where did I hear all this before? And I realized it was in the 60s, where planners come in with great ideas. We'll just bulldoze these blighted areas and start over again, right? I mean, this sounds very, very similar.
And you know what's going to happen? All the people who live in Richmond who think that they are protected by rent control are not going to be protected when the landlord will be able to, instead of 40 feet, go up to 120 feet, and he wants to tear down his property to build a high-rise. They will not be protected.
And you'd have to admit, there are owners along Geary Street who are not that loyal to Geary Street or to the Richmond district. They're ready to go ahead and get the plans to build.
I'll be very. There's a lot of people that are very loyal to the Richmond, but we also have a lot of people from the outside that are coming in and buying properties. Like the gentleman that bought the Alexandra movie theater. It's 4 years now, and he hasn't done anything with it. He spent $7.2 million for it, and he's waiting, because the Coronet, which will going to become the Institute on the Aging, will be one of the high rises, the first high riser, and he figures that when that gets to be high rise, he can go and build up his thing. He can double the size and everything over there.
So we're seeing real signs that the plan to change the character of Geary Street is already in place. It's not just buried in place.
It's in place.
What about the whole Chinese-American community that has a major stake in Clement Street, in Geary Street, in the housing for their families? What has been the reaction?
They really did not know that was it's like a rug been pulled underneath them.
But I can't imagine. Look at the Central Freeway. I was going to talk about the Central Freeway. I mean, we had vote after vote, right? Vote after vote.
I was the treasurer for Central Freeway.
Doesn't that prove you can't sneak things in? You can't sneak things by San Franciscan voters.
You know, the same people that were involved in the Central Freeway are involved in the BRT.
But what I'm saying to you is, I can't imagine how you, with your ability to mobilize communities and the Chinese American organizations and family associations, will allow this measure to be not countered with clear planning to not destroy a neighborhood.
Very easy. You know, what they did is they call it EPAC, you know, which is the Expenditure Plan Advisory Committee. They were formed of 28 people. None of them live in the Richmond. Maybe one person disabled.
Who formed this group?
I would say Jack McGoldrick, if I'm not mistaken. And if I'm not mistaken, it could be the MTA, you know, the Metropolitan Transportation.
I think it might have been that.
The Transportation Authority.
So they created
they only met in 2 months. They only met 6 or 7 times. And they made all this decision, and they snuck it all in without any public input, without any informing of their meetings or anything like that. That's exactly how it fell to the crack.
But I've never known anything in San Francisco when it comes to planning that can be railroaded through. There is always the opportunity for you to put things on the ballot.
And that's what we intend to do.
I mean, that's how the Central Freeway went back and forth, ballot measure after ballot measure.
That is correct. It was 3 times. We won the first time and we lost the last 2 times.
It used to be that it was the progressives in the Green Party who said it was the mean old developers downtown who were sneaking things through. It's just the opposite here.
It's the opposite.
So I
was wrong too. I really thought that too. The other day I was at a meeting with people downtown, And then I realized that these were not the people that involved. It's the left, the Rescue Muni and the Green Party, and these are the people that
But they're
really been doing some incredible change in the city.
But they use the ballot box to stop developers, or at least exact out of developers' concessions. You mean to tell me that you, with all your associations and all the merchants down there, can't stop them?
We can. We're going to have to go to the ballot. You know, it's like they really woke up a sleeping bear.
Exactly. So now let's get positive, so I don't sound too aggressive here. You said there's some room for compromise.
Yes.
Is there room for?
But the MTA are not willing to compromise. They have their plan and their agenda, and they feel that they have PopCap behind them, and they can do whatever they want to do.
You know that can be changed.
Exactly.
At the ballot.
They also had, and that's what we intend to do.
But as far as going down a checklist here, you would support less bus stops.
That is
to
correct.
Move the buses faster.
Without a doubt. You
would support bus lanes, especially during rush hour.
That is correct. And I will also make sure that it's reinforced. The reason they're not enforcing Diamond Lane today is because when you give a ticket for somebody on Diamond Lane, the city in County of San Francisco doesn't get the money. The state does. We can negotiate that, and we can enforce that.
Now, the last thing, do you support some new high-density housing along Geary Street if you can improve the transit system?
Without a doubt.
You support that? Do the Geary merchants support that?
The Geary Boulevard right now is support. Well,
how high?
Well, right now it's 40 feet. You know, I think we can go like maybe to 60 feet.
In other words, there is not that opposition to some high-density housing along that transit corridor.
Right, like as I mentioned to you, the Institute on the Aging, you know, is just going to be 2 stories higher. So that's all what I'm going for. I mean, that will be, it won't be, there's a lot of places where we can go that high.
So you accept that?
I accept that, yes. And I accept that to eliminate bus, and I also accept that you cannot take the cart and put it in front of the horse. Muni is hemorrhaging right now. This year they lost $57 million. They know next year they're going to lose $87 million. And in 3 years they're going to use $103 million.
Correct.
If we know that they're hemorrhaging, don't you think we should go and fix it before we go and do some more digging and putting people out of business?
But the Muni report was an attempt to claim that if you increase ridership by producing a better product, you could stop some of that hemorrhaging.
But you would not, because right now we're having pickpockets on the buses, and those drivers know who the people are, and they ain't doing anything about it.
I see. What you're saying is that the cure for Muni is something totally different. The core, one of the other things that was said, that the parking spaces, which is critical to your business, the beauty network.
Thousands will be lost.
Huh?
Thousands of spots will be lost.
We only have a few seconds left. He claimed a lot of employees park in those parking spots. I said I didn't think so because...
I don't think so, no.
Right, you see it.
I see it, yeah.
Those spaces come and go and so on.
They come and go.
And if they were eliminated...
Be disasters. We're having enough problem now when they increase the meter rates to subsidize Muni. It's really hurting us a lot on Geary Boulevard, not just in Geary, all over the city.
Well, I'll tell you.
Today you need like a roll of $20 in your pocket to go to buy a tie.
Right. I would never want to wake up David Heller and his organization. So I'm sure we're going to see a lot more to this story. Thank you for being on the program.
I really appreciate you inviting me to the show.
And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. For program schedules, post-production notes, and free streaming video of select interviews, visit our website at www.sfunscripted.com.